I remember Chris, that's easy, but okay, welcome everybody. Can start now, right? 4:05. Okay. I think Devinder can introduce himself. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I grew up in Malaka. When I was schooling, I was studying at the KIB school, not too far from here. But my parents worked in the plantations in Sahara State and the institutes of the and secondary school, I went to Melaka High School. And after high school, I did teacher training college, posted to Kota in 1963. I went to Kota, which was very different than what it is today. Then after working there for a few years, I joined the Ministry of Malay, and I did not do history. I majored in Chinese studies. And then went back as a teacher to Kota. I was a teacher in Semarang, in Manti, joined the Ministry of Education as a language officer. Early retirement from the Ministry of Education, joined the British Council in Kuala Lumpur for a couple of years. And after that, joined AP College, and I was posted to Beijing at the Beijing AP Management College, and 2 years in Beijing. After that, coming back, I did 2 years volunteer service for Sabah, Malaysia, at the National Ministry of Laos and Gambia. Then after 2 years came back, then I said, I have to do something, can't be idle myself. So I joined the City and Guilds as an external verifier, covering Southeast Asia for traveling. So because of my various jobs, I used to travel quite a bit in Southeast Asia. When I was in the Ministry of Malay as a student delegation, I went to Indonesia and then to Borneo in 1966, before it was renovated, Borneo and Yogyakarta. And in the early 1970s, a friend went to Kedah, to Tangerang, even Mary, and so other Chinese. Before development took place. Then, when I was in China, I traveled quite a bit in China, right from Harbin to Guangzhou to Xi'an, and saw most of the historical sites. Then, when I was in Laos, I too traveled and saw a number of places. And I've been to Indonesia, Vietnam, most countries in Southeast Asia, and seen many of the sites. And since I did not do history at the university, my only history was at Form 6. But because of my travels, I've seen all the ancient sites, and I said, let me write something about Malaka. What really inspired me to start writing about the olden times was because my father, who came to Malaysia in 1928, and he wanted to find out about his roots. So he started writing about his roots. And as a result, I said, that's interesting. And he traced back our generation right up to 17 something. All the generation traced back. And I said, okay, I need to write something about the history of Malaka, since I grew up in Malaka. And as you know, record history Nowadays, there are different versions of it. And in this talk, I'm going to divide it into two parts. The first part will be dealing with the first two books, that is about Malacca. And the third one is linkages, links between the Malay kingdom and the ancient kingdoms of Southeast Asia. Now the first book, as you can see in the handout, it has 6 sections. Parameswara, Malacca Sultanate, Portuguese occupation, Dutch occupation, British occupation, Dutch Britain to Malacca, that multi-ethnic population of Malacca.
Not use the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, mic better.
No. Yeah, I hear me. Okay. Yeah. Parameswara, there are many different stories about him, when he came, where he came from, and the dates. So I will be touching on that. And much of the information contained about Parameswara is from 2 main books. One is by Tomé Perez, Sunom Oriental. Tomé Perez lived in Malacca from 1512 to 1515, 3 years. He was brought in by Alfonso Devinder, and because he lived in Malacca, he traveled with the sailors all around Southeast Asia, the troops. The other person is Devinder. Now, Devinder was born in Malacca. His father was a Portuguese who went to the Moluccas, and the princess from the Moluccas eloped with this Portuguese. She was, I think, 16 years old, eloped, and they came to Malacca. And Devinder was born in Malacca, and he went to a Jesuit school at that time, which was in Malacca, until he was 30 years old. And later he went to Portugal, India, and he wrote also the history of Malacca. So these 2 sources give the early history of Malacca. And in the early days when we went to school, we did not hear about Malacca and the early sources, because these books were written in Portuguese. Much later they were translated. When they got translated, it's only then the Western and the others got to know about Malacca. So these are the 2 early sources. And if you look here, that is photograph. I'm not sure if that is really Parameswara or not, but that is. And I was quite surprised. Tomé Perez has talked about who Parameswara's parents were. And there are details about it in the book. You can find more details about it in the book. Basically, as it says, Parameswara's father, Bakara Tabaru, ruled the 3 Western states. That is Palembang, Singapore, and things like that. And when he died, Parameswara was in charge of the state of Singapore, and maybe Singapore. Whether it is how true the information is very difficult to verify. And most of you in Malacca know about the history of Parameswara from Sumatra. He went to Singapore, from Singapore to Moa, and Moa to Malacca. I think you are familiar with it. Some details may be different than the others. Now, what is interesting is that the manual in Australia mentions that if you look at the second page here, where he was dwelling. I'm not sure whether that's the place. Since you are in Malacca, maybe some of you need to explore the place. Go over there and see whether you can find any evidences. As it says, on the seacoast of the Malacca district, there still survive some ancient relics of Ferniculi and the descendants who succeeded him. For instance, a place named Pancho. They are so-called a king's room. This is a room constructed of marble for the king to bathe in. At the point of Tanjung Tuan or Togoro Tadu or Cape Chado located in Tanjung Recreation Forest, on the very summit of the hill, there survives another building which looks like a basin, made of marble blocks or like the wings of the base of a pyramid in which Ferniculi was buried. That's what Wikipedia states. I don't know whether any research has been done. I mean, people have gone there to find this, whether it is true or not. It's left to the people that can maybe to go and find that find. Now, was Parameswara the first ruler? Was he here in 1403 or much earlier? Interestingly, in Malacca, they have come up with a date that it was very much earlier than 1400. Recently, I attended a talk about this book. I don't know whether you have come across this book or not, recently published. The Medieval Chronology of Malacca by C.O. Blackman. Dennis David presented it. Blackman was the district officer in Lassi. And he knew Malay. He has written a number of books of Malay magic and others. And he makes out the case that it was around 1400 that Parameswara was around, not as what the other writers and writers. On page 17, I refer to page 17 after reading. The date on the founding of Malacca has been debated among historians throughout the ages. This particularly relates to the founding of Malacca by Parameswara, or rather the first Sultan of Malacca. Early Portuguese historians such as Gaspar Corella, Pedro Fernão, João de Barrios, Diego, and so on, have all proposed different dates for the founding of Malacca. Dutch writer Francis Valentin gave the date founding of Malacca as between 1252 to 1253. A note to be aware, Valentin wrote the description of Malacca. He was not in Malacca himself and never visited Malacca. Instead, he relied on correspondence. So you can't really trust those dates when the person has not been there himself and witnesses the same records. Now, the records, and then he argues and gives the decision why it was 1400 and not as what the Institute Legends Sudana and Methodist Malaysia mentions their date as 1262, the founding of Malacca. He gives an argument. If you get the book, you get a copy, you might be able to get it shortly or upgrade to buy it. Now, how can we make sure that Parameswara was in 1400? What are the definite records? First definite record are the Chinese records from the Chinese emperors from Zhenhou and Prince Sada. He came 1405 to Malacca. That is a definite record. Then you have the Portuguese records. Then you have records of ceramics and other wines and things found in Malacca. Malacca was an easy port. And then you have the dates when the last Sultan of Malacca died and things like that. So based on that basis, most likely it was around 1400, not as what is claimed in that book. I have not read that book. I total the references as well as 62. So if you look at various items, so that was the date when. And another interesting article about Al-Qaswara is by Professor Wang Ganggu. In his book, there's a chapter, The Rulers of Malacca. You all know Professor Wang Ganggu, he was a friend of him. Actually, his wife, Wang's wife, was my lecturer when I was in a teacher training college. And I had met Professor Wang Ganggu. And he has written an article, The First Three Rulers of Malacca. And he has given different dates and things like that. We see that Hikayat, Sedara Malay with different date, some Portuguese with slightly different date, and different versions of the Malay annals are Hikayat with different dates. But eventually, if you look at all the dates and things like that, it comes to around 1400. Most people don't agree that's about the date. No doubt people in Malacca who wrote that book may not agree with it. And in this book, apart from the early rulers of Malacca, there's on the legacy of Malacca, there's one chapter on the legacy of Malacca, about the Portuguese attack and capture of Malacca. Here too, most of you are familiar. In 1409, Don Diego Lopez de Sequeira came to Malacca. He was captured, 2 of his ships were burnt, about 11 of them were marooned, and then Alfonso de Albuquerque came 1511. Now, not much is known how Alfonso got to know about it. There was a letter written by the Ajero, I can't remember his name, to Alfonso about what happened. And one of the persons was a Chetty, Nina Chetty, things like that, Chetty, who corresponded with Alfonso and he knew about it. So he went to Aceh first, went to Sumatra first, then came to Malacca, and he captured Malacca. And there is a good description of the capture of Malacca by Alfonso. And there's also the book, the Albuquerque Commentaries, written by Albuquerque's illegitimate son. And there's also a musical intent made about the capture of Malacca. I can't quite recall it, but I've come across its internet about Malacca. So there's quite a bit about Malacca by the Portuguese sources. Now, if part of this when I convert and become a Muslim, it's also a great word. But most people, historians agree, it was not he who became a Muslim, but the later sultans. And if you look back at the names of the early sultans, the first 4 sultans still had Hindu names. The early documents will still show that the first 4 sultans had been named, only the 5th sultan really had a Muslim name and it became a Muslim empire in that sense. Then there's a bit of write-up about St. Francis area and from Malacca. People in Malacca are quite familiar with St. Francis area and his story. Now, the other interesting thing is about letters written to the King of Portugal by the Casados and the Kings or the Indians. They were known as Kings earlier on, the Indians. Although these days they will be not. Now, if you look at page 3, at the bottom, below the port of Malacca, during the rule of the Portuguese, that emerged a mixed race group called Casados, who played an important role in the military administration of the fort. They also involved in the trade, and some of them owned a fleet of vessels and competed with other traders. They lobbied the King of Portugal for rights to their own land that had been occupied by the Kings to do. The dispute between these two groups became ugly. Both groups wrote letters to the King of Portugal. Both translated letters are reproduced in the book. So these two letters written by them, by the Indians and the Portuguese, are reproduced in this book, in full. I was lucky to get a copy of these letters written by a professor from US who knew Portuguese, and then we got it translated in English. And this is a reproduction from the original letter in Tamil, some of the signatures of the people who wrote, and they got translated. So that is interesting for you to look at these letters and see what they say, because there was sort of enmity between the Eurasians and the Jati people, all wanted the land. They were trying to confuse when you get the land and the Portuguese king, because there's a dispute. These are photographs of the ancient people, photograph of Rajan and Pakistan, coming from here. The other interesting thing about Malacca is that, as from the title, that 84 languages were once spoken. That's also from Devinder, and I have reproduced here from the book mentions where people from various parts of the world were in Malacca. It was a very busy trading port, Malacca. It had links with most of Asia and the Middle East countries. If you look at the names of the people and the places, and whether there were 84 languages spoken or no, we don't. But that's not was stated. But what we can make sure is that there were a lot of languages spoken. It could be so because even if you look at Sumatra, people from Aceh, from Java, from Minangkabau, from the others would have speak different dialects. So they consider these as different languages. So there is a possibility. Even in Malaya, then, people from Kelantan and Johor, they can't understand even today. If you go to the rural part of Kelantan and you start speaking, you will not understand what they're saying, people in Johor. When I first went to Kelantan in 1963, I was lost. I couldn't even go to the market to buy things. Even they don't count percent, 1%. They say kupang, sama. And they said, they were not one. I just couldn't understand what they were saying. So I made efforts to try to understand. What I did was that they had a lot of data like this. I would sit on the data and start a conversation and just listen to them and see what they were saying. And so I picked up so I could manage. So Kelantan was very different then. They had the Chinese consulate in those days in Kota. And there was so much difference between Siam and Kelantan in the 60s. And in Tumpak, there was Buddhist temples. Even today there are 25 Buddhist temples in Kota. So that is basically give me the context of this first. Another important point about this, the British occupied Malacca and destroyed the fort. When the Dutch handed Malacca to the British because of wars in the Napoleon wars in Europe. So people in Malacca did not know anything. There they came in Malacca. One day the Portuguese flag was down, the British monasteries. To the people they did not know, they were not aware of what was happening. And later the rivers took place, the British flag was down and the Portuguese went up and down. The people were not consulted, not considered whatsoever. So at that time, Penang was founded by Francis Light, 1786. They wanted to make Penang an important naval base, important trading center, and destroy Malacca. They wanted all the Europeans, the Chinese, the Indians to go to Penang. The only person who really saved was the Fatwa who was in charge of Malacca. And Fatwa was married to a Malay lady, he had 3 children, and he was well liked by the people. And he said, if Malacca is destroyed, we will lose the trade between Malacca and Sumatra. The Malay sultans around there have Malacca in respect because they had the Malay kingdom. Malacca was in charge of Sumatra at that time. They were all relatives and things like that. And later, they wanted to still destroy the fort. And the next person who said that was Senator Douglas. He came to Malacca. He was ill. He went to Malacca twice to recuperate. And then he wrote a letter to the governor in India, and he said, Malacca is important. They already started destruction, destroying the fort and things like that. Munshi Abdullah has written something about it. If you read about Munshi Abdullah, you can see. And there is, I think, in the appendix here, about the fort. About the article of Munshi Abdullah on the fort. And because of him, the Dutch buildings, the fort was saved. If not, we would not even have the Dutch building, we would not have the chain and things like that because of levels. And another interesting point is that when the British were here, the British invaded Java. From Malacca, they launched the attack to Java. From Malacca. And Munshi Abdullah has written about the number of boats, ships, and other people coming to work. Okay, this is from page 122. Abdullah stated that 4 or 5 days after the catch had sailed, ships started arriving in Malacca. 3 ships, 4 ships, a single ship at a time. The next day, more came, perhaps 6 or 7 ships. And so it went on day after day. All ships carried Indian soldiers and sailors. The officers speak English, a large number of them. The troops encamped at a place called Dimogan. You all know what Dimogan is. They stretched as far as Tanjung Plain. Each unit with its distinctive uniform. There were different sets, Hindus, Muslims, and so on and so forth. That is Munshi Abdullah's writing about how the British came and then sent a fleet and captured Java. Then later the Dutch and the British came to that. And it is 1824. 1824 was the Anglo-Dutch treaty. And not much is written about how much the local people in the Malay Archipelago and in Johor suffered by the Anglo-Dutch treaty. Arbitrarily, the line is drawn. That's Indonesia, the Dutch, and it belongs to the British. But at that time, the Malay Kingdom, Melaka, Sumatra was all one area, relatives, cousins, relatives, princesses' wives. And there was one royal member from Sumatra who wanted to defy. He took a boat and sailed to Kenya. The British chased him all the way to Punjabu and things like that, and eventually knocked him off. So they arbitrarily made a division. And that's not the first time the British have made those divisions. In history, there are many other examples. In India is the classic example. In Africa, there are other examples. So far, they are arbitrarily divided. So this is basically about the first four languages not spoken. The second one, in terms of early history and multicultural Malacca. The first part is sort of summary of the first part, because to write about multicultural, if you only get this book, you need to know what happened before. Unless you have read this, then probably. But if you're only getting this book, then it will be helpful because it tells you in the first part. It is a bit brief in the first part. And apart from that, the other articles which is interesting is Cheng Ho Azanka's 7 voyages. There's one chapter on it. Gives the details of his various voyages which he came to this part of the world. And most of you also will be familiar with the various voyages. He traveled not only to Malacca, to Sumatra, to the Middle East, to Africa, and they say even once a giraffe was sent from Kenya to China. But there's a bit of controversy about it, whether it was directly from Kenya or went to India first and then later sent to China. Even elephants were transported there by ship those days. But how much of it we can believe or not we don't. So that is interesting. And it is from his writing and from his dates that for sure we can say life was around 14 something. Because this is definite proof from the Chinese country. And especially when he traveled, there was Ma Huan, who was a scribe. He recorded things. Now when you refer to Chinese encyclopedias and Chinese people who have written history, there are 2 groups of scribes. Very few of them traveled to Asia and saw and wrote. Many of them wrote things secondhand. The sailors came, the missionaries came, they then after 3 years, 4 years, they go back and tell them, I don't know how much of it is true, how much is made up, and these scribes start writing. That is why different names, different spelling, different places. So you cannot say the Chinese writings are authoritative. Yeah, you need to know whether the person who wrote that encyclopedia has been in this part of the world, or has he writing secondhand. So that's another thing you need to bear in mind. Because some people just say, oh, the Chinese civilization. No, it's not. So that's another interesting topic to be about. Some say he did not go on all the 7 voyages. On the 6th voyage, he came halfway and went back. And he was killed or he died on the last voyage. He even went to Palembang in Sumatra and started Islam there. And not much has been written about that. There's also an article about the Portuguese attack and capture Malacca. Details are given. When Malacca lost, there were a lot of attempts made by the Malay rulers and party to recapture Malacca, but they were not successful. There were attempts made. Not much has been written about that in the history books. Then the British occupied Malacca, Dutch returned to Malacca. Now, if you have seen this book and look at the book, you will realize that not much is mentioned about Tunku Abdul Rahman and the Malay rulers of Malaysia. There's a reason behind this. A friend of mine knew a Chinese businessman. At that time, he wanted to develop Malacca, all the occupancy of Malacca and things like that. He said, don't worry, I'll bring this chap here and hundreds of Chinese tourists will come in. We write the book, focus more on the Chinese. We translate the book into Chinese for the Chinese market. So I was about halfway through or 3/4 of the way writing the book for the Chinese market. Later, when the COVID came in, the whole thing fell apart and that fell apart. And since I've written most of it, I've written Matans using big and latter in Chinese, and therefore prominence has been given to it. So there's a story behind it. Otherwise, the book would have been slightly different and written I became happy. So, in Matans using and his family built the Japanese occupation beyond India. He was in India. Not only he, a few other Chinese prominent people went to India to escape the Japanese occupation. And there he met the politicians in India and things like that. And that's where he got all his ideas about things like that. So there's a bit of background on Marxism and the independence of Malaya. Then we have the Malay Union. Those are history will know about the Malay Union, the Federation of Malay Agreements. There's not much, but there's a little bit about it. And all that is in the next forthcoming book. The next book, what I'm looking at is the British in Malaya. How they use gunboat diplomacy to capture Penang, Singapore, Bangkok, Pahang. In all those 4 places, when the treaty was signed, there was a gunboat. Even in Singapore, there was a gunboat. Even in Pahang, in Bangkok, it was on a gunboat. Bangkok engagement. So they used gunboats. So not much has been portrayed in other articles, but I'm looking at that. And that book is talking about opium to divert it. Malaya was used as a settlement for opium. The British got so much revenue from opium that for a few years the revenue from opium was more than that from rubber. Opium was the largest revenue earner for the British for a period of time. And very little that in Britain. Another thing, Malaya was used as a slave colony, a convict colony. convicts were used as labor to build all the iconic buildings in Singapore. The lighthouse, Perdana Lighthouse, was built by convicts. St. Andrew's Church, Malaysian Temple, the jail in Singapore, the President's Palace, all were built by convicts from not only mainly from India, but also from Burma and some Chinese. They used to bring convicts from Hong Kong, but once they brought in the Chinese government to Hong Kong, they righted, killed the captain of the ship, and after that, no more Chinese convicts. They were afraid of it. Okay, that's a different story. Okay, the second part deals with traditional festivals. Okay, when I was here, I did not know much about the Long Festival. Only after starting reading and writing, I knew about the Long Festival. So there's a bit of write-up about the Long Festival. Mandi Safa, I was familiar. When I was studying in Kunkarang School, I was still in a boarding school in an opposite Kunkarang School. And in Mandi Safa, I used to see bullock carts traveling along the road going to Tanjung Priok. Bullock carts, colorful bullock carts traveling and all the way to Tanjung Priok. And that is why I believe in Mandi Safa. And it was such a big festival then in Malacca. But because not the Islamic background, it was discontinued. But we still have Mandi Safa in Sumatra and in Indonesia and in India and a number of places that are still being celebrated. And architecture. Many of the early mosques, the Turkana Mosque, the Kampung Mosque, were built by Chinese masons. And that is why you can find Chinese design in the mosque. The builders were from China. And very few Portuguese buildings left. Because when the Dutch came, they bombarded the city and knocked off whatever was surviving. And that is why there's hardly any Portuguese buildings or remains. The Dutch destroyed them. Okay, that's photographs and a bit of mention. And about cuisine, okay, being Malacca, you're familiar with the cuisine, and maybe for the city cuisine, you need to ask about one, maybe have a meal here.
That's vanilla.
I don't know about the tea cuisine and the city festivals and things like that. They will be in a better position to give more details about it than me. So basically, this book is about that. It would be useful for tourists or somebody not from Malacca who wants to do a bit of background in Malacca and multicultural and the various. I think one of the questions about Malacca food is anything to ask?
Anybody got any question can ask.
About the Malacca because the colorful Malacca's
You can sit there.
Yes, following the Eric at the one.
Yes.
So from the writing, can you say this grave could be on top of the hill, could be under the lighthouse, the lighthouse.
That is a possibility, but you cannot verify unless some authorities go and excavate and dig up.
There are tombs in the foot of the hill. On the foot of the hill. There are some tombs there. Ancient tombs. Yeah.
But being the so-called Raja, Sultan, you should write your name is the light is best place.
You see, Malacca had a lot of links with many countries in Southeast Asia. You can know from the trade, not only from the trade, the influence of Islam, and spreading Islam in Brunei and to India's lands. Not only trade, also Malay was used as a development of India. But originally they said it was from Sumatra. Because the original stones from the old Malay were from Palembang, from Sumatra. But then when Malacca was an important, because they were an important trading center all over the lands. The other thing was the harbour rules, the Undang-Undang Malacca. They were spread to many parts of Malaya. In this article it says, Undang-Undang Malacca was adopted by Kedah, Pahang, Johor, Pontianak. In an article, rereading Arab laws and legal texts by Abu Taib Ahmad. Yes, mentioned that. The Undang-Undang Malacca. Okay. This book, Linkages. The cover, on the cover is what good. You know what good is anyone? It's a blouse. What good is a blouse? I visited the place when it became a heritage site. That's me in front of what good in 2003.
Where is that, Mr. Where is it?
What good in
Where?
Champasak, Laos,
Laos.
southern Laos.
No.
That's all in what good in Champasak in southern Laos. Now, when you read about the Malay Kingdom, the Malay Kingdom does not mean Peninsula Malaya. Because remember, the Malay Kingdom then was southern Thailand, Malaya, Sumatra, Sabah, southern Philippines. All this area was referred to as the Malay Kingdom or the Malay Archipelago. So when you say linkages to the Malay Kingdom, it does not mean Peninsula. It means Malay Kingdom in this region. Because that was what historically people referred to as the Malay Kingdom. Now, if you look at the handout on the notation by George Curtis, from Indianization was born a series of kingdoms that in the beginning were two Indian states, Cambodia, Java, and the small states of the Malay Peninsula. The kingdom of Sumatra, Java, and Bali, finally Burmese and Thai kingdoms, which received Indian culture from the Mons and Bruneians. To reaction with the indigenous subject, however, each of these developed according to their own genius. Although their cultures never lost the family resemblance, but owed their common origin. George Curtis was a French. Book has been translated into English. And some of the other writers who have written a lot about Indianization of the kingdom of Southeast Asia is Majumdar, from India, Professor Majumdar, and Sastry. Sastry is in southern India, and Majumdar is from Bengal, And if you read both of them, Sastri will say, oh, most of them were from Tamils, deposited in the south. Then Majumdar, being the north, he said, oh, many of them were from the north of India. So there is a bit of jealousy that who actually was there. But at times they do, because like in Canada, many of the earlier writing is the Palawa script, and Palawa script is from South India, not from Northern India. Because the Malay Peninsula is between India and China, it was on the crossroads for traders, for travelers, and trade. And as a result, there were minor kingdoms who were established all along both the west coast and the east coast of the Malay Archipelago. There's a map here in the handout. If you have a look at the map, somewhere at the back in the handout. That's the map that shows some of the kingdom. Right from the north was the Malay Kingdom. Okay. According to the writers, there were many kingdoms, not really kingdoms or city-states there. Some writers say there were over 20, stretching all the way up north of Thailand, right up to Johor in the south, even on the Tioman Island, Tongani, Kelantan, and so on. A few of them are mentioned. I'll briefly go into a few of them. One is Tunsun. This most likely was on the Klang Isthmus on the east side, because it had links with the kingdom in the Funan kingdom of Cambodia. It was at the time also controlled by Cambodia, the Tunsun kingdom on the east coast. It was a Buddhist kingdom. There's a description of the kingdom by the Chinese. I'll just read a little bit. A dependency of Yunnan, its king is called Kunlun, Old Khmer King. In the country, there are 500 families of the Khu from India, most likely Buddhists, and more than 1,000 Indian Brahmins. The people of Tunsun practice their doctrine and give their daughters in marriage. Consequently, many of the Brahmins do not go away. They do nothing but study the sacred canon, bathe themselves with scents and flowers, and practice piety ceaselessly day and night. So there's a description. So there are a number of descriptions written by Chinese for the various kingdoms, written by the Chinese scholars, because they were the most frequent travelers. Then there's the other kingdom of Pan Pan, another kingdom up also in the north, which also had links with the kingdoms in Southeast Asia because of travel. Now, an interesting kingdom is the Tamralinga kingdom. It is the only kingdom in the Malay Peninsula which was strong enough that went and attacked Sri Lanka. They went to Jaffna to attack Sri Lanka. First time succeeded. Second time he was not succeeded. He wanted the tools of the pagoda and the vessel, but he was killed. So it was a strong kingdom. Later it became under the control of the Srivijaya Empire, and Thailand also became. But at one time it was a really strong kingdom. The other interesting kingdom is G2, or Great Earth. Relics have been found in Kelantan, Buddhist relics, And there's a place called Tanamera in Kelantan, until today, which is known the Great Lake. Up the Kelantan River, Buddhist relics have been found. You can read about it in some of the later articles written by people, not in the earlier history books. The other important kingdom is Lanka Sutta. Lanka Sutta, where it is located, is debated. Some say right from Patani to Kedah, in the area of Patani to Kedah. Now, Lanka Sutta is one of the earliest kingdoms in Southeast Asia. Earlier than Borobudur, earlier than Angkor Wat. If you look at the timelines, there's a timeline which shows the age of Lanka Sutta compared with the kingdoms of other part. And later part of Lanka Sutta became the Bujang Valley. Bujang Valley. And you know Bujang Valley, a lot has been written lately about the Bujang Valley, ancient kingdom, Srivijaya. And looking at Bujang Valley existed about 2,000 years ago. It was a Hindu Buddhist kingdom. Melaka existed about 700 years ago. Here's the thing, that should be earlier important part of history of the country, the Bujang Valley, because it existed about 2,000 years ago. It was a great empire, and after that there was the Malay kingdom, which controlled major part of Southeast Asia. It's a pity it has not been made a UNESCO heritage site. Steps were taken 10 years ago to make it into a UNESCO heritage site, Bujang Valley. Until today, the authorities have not pursued it, and it has not become an UNESCO heritage site. And in that time, some chandis have been lost, have been destroyed, and we have lost so much of treasure in the Bujang Valley. If it had become a historical site, it would have attracted thousands of tourists, historians to do research, find out about Bujang Valley. And I think next week, those who have seen the paper, there is going to be a visit on the Bujang Valley, going to be by sighting. Motor sighting. 480 million 3-day tour of the Bujang Valley. Those who are interested, I think it's next week. I think I have the dates.
We are trying to make it a tourist center.
Yes, we are trying to make it a tourist section. I think the date is 28 end of the month. 3-day visit, 480 million. If you refer to the, I think WhatsApp or Instagram or Facebook, you might be able to get the information about the Bujang Valley. So, there are some photographs of monuments found in the Bujang Valley. There was an exhibition at the National Museum in KL, and I took these photographs where there were exhibits. These are the relics, some of the ancient Buddhist relics.
Mr. Raj, you said that you had been to the Bujang Valley a long time ago, before all this construction. Do you have photographs of the time of visiting?
It's pretty, I don't have photographs there. I went there 1970, somewhere 1970s. I saw the Chinese, I went up to the things like that. I went with the French photographer who took me around. And then from that later I went to Bali and Europe. And I could compare on the ground the structure of the ruins in Bujang Valley with those in Bali. And it's like, hey, this is something common in Sydney. It's like that. So that's what I will generally, I think more details also. The next part, I deal with the other kingdoms in Southeast Asia. You have the Funan Kingdom in Cambodia, which had a lot of links, also a Buddhist kingdom. Now, another interesting kingdom is the Champa Kingdom. Champa Kingdom of Vietnam. Very, it was only lately that much has been written about the Champa Kingdom. Its origin, not many people know how it came about, and then it disappeared. Not many people know how it disappeared. But according to records from the people from India went to the Champa, because first a Hindu kingdom up north in Vietnam. Later, Buddhist influence. It had links to Java. People from Java, from Champa, the queen also went to village in Java. And then later, Muslim traders came in the 14th century, Persians, Malays, Arabs. And most of the Muslims then were chased out. From there, they went to Cambodia and they went to Lanka. And Champa had close links with Lanka. One of the princesses from the Champa kingdom was married to the Lanka royal family. And some of the buildings, the names are Champa names. And there are Champa people still living in Lanka, but not much is talked about it. They don't want foreigners, so they rely on Europe. In Pradani and Pranandara, Champa. So it has a long link. So if you look at Champa, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, Christianity, you have a French trading. And even the Islam, those who stay back in Champa, the Muslims, they have a very different form of Islam with so many Indian or Hindu or Buddhist influence in their Islam. There's still a group about in the Champa. Lately, the Vietnamese are trying to pick up and do a lot of research about Champa, about Mysore and things like that. But earlier days, the Vietnamese from the north came and chased the Champa people. Even the Chinese fought chased the Champa people away. So it has a very long, interesting history. If you happen to go to Cambodia, go to Mysore, where you have the ruins, the ancient ruins. Because that's about the Champa. And the Srivijaya is also an important kingdom. Srivijaya is considered an empire rather than a kingdom, because it did not really have a king in that sense. It was a trading nation. There's a map right at the back showing the extent of the Srivijaya empire. Yes, that's at the back showing the extent of the Srivijaya. From Palembang, from the Musi River, to Lido up in the north, to the Bujang Valley, all being a trading nation. It was more interested in trade and control this other. Even Sarameswara, efforts to Vindaya, he got the Majapahit from Java, and therefore he escaped and came to the nation. So that's about CBN. And also a write-up of the other kingdoms and the links. The last part, as you can see, there's a summary of the kingdoms and shows some of the links on the last page. The last page, you can see the summary. Summary about the various missions. Basically, these are the three books which I have written about the linkages. Any questions?
You mentioned that Srivijaya was an empire and how did it hold together as was it a polity?
Trade.
Trade, right?
Because
Was there no one person?
They don't mention one person, and its capital also, its center is Malaka, Musi, Bidong, Bidang Valley, where there was more important trade in China. That means trade in China. It was a trading nation. It was a trading nation, rather than a kingdom as such. Anything else for the class? If you're interested in the Buddha reality, and if you're going to visit, get a copy of this, because it tells you the way the site recently published, bilingual, both in Malay and English. Half of it is in Malay, half of it is in English. I think it's about 49 again, that's about it. You can pass it around there. The other books maybe you will get. My books are for sale, all 3 copies. If you want all 3 copies, it's 50 ringgit, each copy 20 ringgit. If you want 1 copy, 20, all 3 for 50 ringgit. They have all been photographed. If you are interested, you can take a copy. If you don't want,
Okay.
you can also please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Devinder. Some refreshment later. Cake, yeah, quick.
So in the meantime, you can have a look at the books.
Yeah.
The results to the books. They have all have been autographed.
Okay. Come, enjoy.